Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode review. This one's going to be for Season 4, Episode 26, Owari, the finale episode for Season 4. And yeah, this was not very good. I was really disappointed with this episode. And I don't think it was just my expectations that eventually led me to kind of feel this way after being let down by the episode. I think this is just honestly an underwhelming finale episode. And that's all the worse because it actually had decent setup from the previous episode and then a couple of little things, I suppose, over the course of the season. But in general, this didn't do it for me at all. This should have been an amazing episode of Turtles. In terms of this being the final Shredder fight, Splinter's just died. This is going to be them, to some extent, taking revenge, ending this threat once and for all. It should have been like the best fight of the series, but it wasn't. And I'm not really sure why it just missed the mark so badly. Just trying to think about it, I think it comes down to the fact that there's way too much fighting in this entire show, not just this one episode. Across the entire 4 seasons of this show, there's been way too many fights in that, like, they feel that they need to have a fight in every single episode, when they don't. And because of that, it meant that I think they almost ran out of ideas for the finale here. Nothing that the Turtles did in the fight against Shredder at the end here felt overly special, that they're better now, based on previous episodes. And I think that's the problem. The build to that final battle, once they got through all the Foot Ninja, Foot Bots, and like Fish Face and Tiger Claw, once they got through all of those characters, it should have been a build to this incredible, intense scene with Shredder on the rooftop. But it wasn't. And I don't know how they managed to get it so wrong. How they managed to go from having such an intense battle between Splinter and Shredder in the previous episode, also on a rooftop, to having the same thing here with the Turtles and it just not work at all. And I think the problem is that we, over the course of this entire 4 seasons, have not really seen the Turtles develop. We've never really seen them as characters like properly develop, nor have we seen them develop in terms of their combat capabilities. So when you actually have Leonardo kill Shredder, apparently, it just felt kind of not very earned, because like what did Leonardo do that suddenly made him skilled enough to take on Shredder? And I think that's what was missing. We didn't have that moment of like Leo on his own training to learn to do stuff better or anything like that. It was just Leonardo kind of first time leading the team without Splinter, and he proved himself in the battle and beat Shredder. There was no build to it, it just happened. And it was one of the most underwhelming endings to a fight I've ever seen for such a major villain. In that they cut away from it like instantly. Just the fact that like they're in the middle of a fight, Leonardo with the swords is doing okay against Shredder, but he's ultimately not as powerful. The swords get kind of thrown away, he takes a bit of a beating. Vision of Splinter happens, Leonardo fights back hand to hand, gets one of his swords, and it's like, okay, the fight's going to continue now, one sword versus Shredder on his own. Then they just dive at each other and it's suddenly like samurai final cut moment. And I'm just like, that's it? Like it's just, that's the final blow of the fight, really. No build towards it. And then it's just like, that's it. No, like, seeing what actually happened. Obviously they weren't going to show the details of like how badly injured like Shredder was, or how instantly killed he was, or anything like that. The assumption is potentially that like he either cut him in half or like cut his head off, just based on the fact that he later brings out Shredder's kind of helmet, but he doesn't bring his head. That was kind of just a weird moment for me, that they just cut away from it, to the point where I'm just like, I am not sure if I'm meant to take this as the absolute death of Shredder. I don't know if that's him fully gone, just because so much of it happened off screen. I don't want to say that the fighting in this episode was completely bad. There was a section where it was the 4 turtles, when they basically first got up there, the first started the fight, where the 4 turtles just kind of overwhelmed Shredder temporarily just by going like full force at him, and it worked out really well. But then like they were clear with what they were trying to do. Separate the group so that it was gradually less and less numbers advantage. So, Raph gets tossed off the roof, Donnie gets tossed off the roof, Mikey gets tossed off the roof, until it's only Leo left. That was fine, but it was a bit obvious what they were doing when it came down to it, in that, okay, they're not committing to, properly, injuring the turtles, they're just getting them out of the fight. There's fire around the rooftop, so they can't get back up. April has used most of her power, so she can't, fire them back up there. That was okay, but again, it just came down to the fact that the fight just didn't have a lot of intensity when we got there. It honestly did just feel like another fight in this show, rather than anything special. And then other things like that. Apparently Raphael just left Fishface to die, because he was just there on his own, and he is a fish, and he had to have the mechanical legs and the breathing apparatus to survive. So is it just meant to assume that he's dead now? That he just dies on the bank of that kind of lake? Just like Razar was apparently killed in the last episode? It's little things like that, and the fact that, okay, we end the season with the idea of, okay, we've defeated the big enemy, we've avenged our master, we're going forward now with kind of Leo as our key leader. He's proved himself to basically be a master ninja, having defeated Shredder. And they're just okay, there's still threats out there, someone new is going to rise up to take on the power vacuum, and then Tiger Claw's still out there. So, are they setting up Tiger Claw as the main villain going forward? I don't really... he's interesting now because of the last couple of episodes, but I don't find him to be that threatening to that degree. And then there's just other little moments of just, you demutate Baxter, and that's that. And then, speaking of the demutation thing, and the fact that they had Retro Mutagen with them, I thought the whole idea of, okay, they're going into battle, and they have 2 vials of Retro Mutagen, and they're going to try and demutate Shredder to then be able to take him on. I just thought it was such a random thing to set that up, and then just it has no effect, and they don't even explain why it has no effect. We assume it's because of all the mutagen experimentation Baxter has done on him, but it was just completely brushed aside that it was fighting with very little dialogue. I think another thing that was a weakness with the fight at the end was just that everything that Shredder was saying was not notable at all. He was just, cookie cutter villain in terms of his dialogue. I'm evil now, I've killed your master, how does that make you feel? And Leo not really buying into it, and kind of trying to convince Saki that no, you're still a human, that yes, you killed your brother, but there's still hope for you in a way, that do you not feel anything for having done this? And there's a slight hint of something, but they don't commit to it at all. So it was just overall super, super, low-key and unsatisfying. I suppose one aspect of the episode I did like. I liked that the Turtles came to visit Karai in hospital first, and part of what prompted them to make this their final strike was just this idea of we have to do this now. We don't want him to recover and then come after you again to take you out, go after Casey's family, April's father. We don't want that to happen, so we're going to strike now before anything happens, and just you have a nice little moment between Leo and Karai as she kind of, basically says, give him a few hits for me. And then at the end, they seem to more or less establish that Karai, still in the process of healing, is probably going to be more involved with the team going forward, and that potentially her and Leo will maybe start an actual relationship maybe going forward. We may get some actual romance in the show, which we've kind of been waiting for a bit. So if they commit to that, that's actually pretty cool. But, there's 2 scenes. I thought they were better done than a lot of the scenes within the episode, but in general, an episode that was overall fairly disappointing. The fact that everyone kind of got new weaponry in general, new outfits going into the final battle was okay, cool. But Leo had a bow and arrow, but only used it against Tiger Claw. He didn't actually use it in the fight against Shredder or anything like that. So it ended up being just that okay, it's there to kind of highlight the fact that they're really going for it in this last fight, but I kind of took it as okay, this is a way to get more toys for the characters. Just the black version of all the Turtles with kind of slightly new equipment. That's what you're going for here, rather than being this really meaningful thing of their new equipment matters a massive amount in the final fight. So I just think there's so many disappointing aspects of this episode, and I think it really, to me, diminishes the effect of episode 25. Like, I think episode 25 just objectively was a very good episode. Yes, as I said in my review of 25, it was somewhat lessened by the fact that they had teased the death of, like, Splinter, like, 10 times already. But it still had impact, it happening, and it happening for good at that point in time. This one, just, like, pretty much one of the first times with the Turtles just fighting one-on-one against Shredder, surprisingly didn't have impact, and I think that's where they missed the mark so badly. And like, as I said before, like, I'm with this show and the quality, that level that it's been at for like the last while, for most of this season, like, I've been considering like dropping the show in terms of shows that I'm reviewing on my channel. I'm going to give it the start of season 5 to see where it goes, and if it takes an interesting direction in what I assume is going to have to be like the final season of Turtles, season 5. I can't see them going any further now that Shredder and Splinter are both gone. So we'll see how that goes. But in general, like, I think this was just such a big disappointment for me because I was actually really excited waking up this morning to watch the episode, and then I watched it and it just completely let me down. So I'm pretty much going to end the video there before I start repeating myself. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode. Did you actually really enjoy this as a follow-up to 25? Did you like where they went with it? Or were you also, like me, very disappointed in what this episode did? So definitely let me know in the comments. But yeah, other than that, that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.